The front door creaked open. I stood in the hallway, shaking, bleeding, one eye already turning purple. My mom looked at me. My dad stepped forward. They said nothing. No questions, no hugs, just silence. Then they turned around and walked out. 30 minutes later, they came back, and everything I thought I knew about my family changed. It was a Saturday afternoon in the suburbs of Minnesota. I was 17, a senior, and until that day, I thought I had a pretty normal life. Football practice, honor roll, strict but loving parents. Our house was the kind of place where the lawn was always trimmed, the fridge was always full, and every room smelled faintly of lemon-scented cleaner. Nothing ever felt dangerous. Until that moment. The guy who hit me wasn't a stranger. His name was Tyler. He was older. A friend of my cousin. Someone my parents knew, someone they trusted. He came over to drop off some tools my dad lent him. I was alone, just watching TV in the basement when he walked in. He asked me weird questions, stuff like, "You think you're better than everyone, huh? You act real smart, but I see the way you look at people." I tried to laugh it off, tried to walk away, but the moment I turned my back, he grabbed me, threw me against the wall so hard, I thought something cracked. Then came the punch. Right in the face. A sharp flash of pain. Then blood. I was on the ground, hands shaking, trying to crawl backward when I heard the front door creak open. Tyler ran out the back door, and then my parents walked in. I thought they'd rush to me. Ask who did it, call the police, hold me. But instead, my mom stopped in the hallway, eyes locked on mine. My dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't say a word. They just stood there, for maybe 5 seconds, then turned and walked out the front door. No explanation, no phone, no jacket, just gone. I sat there, stunned, blood dripping down my cheek, the side of my head throbbing. I wanted to scream after them, ask what I'd done wrong, why they were leaving me like this. But I couldn't move. Everything felt frozen, like time had stopped. 30 minutes passed. I remember exactly, because I watched the microwave clock the whole time. I thought maybe they'd gone for help, or maybe they were scared. I didn't know. Then I heard tires screeching in the driveway. The door burst open. My dad walked in first, his knuckles red, eyes wild, breathing hard. My mom behind him, holding an ice pack and a bag of frozen peas. They didn't say a word. She handed me the ice. He knelt down and said softly, "Is it just the eye?" I nodded. He exhaled slowly, then said the words that would haunt me for years. "Good. It's done." I never saw Tyler again, never heard his name mentioned, and I never got the full truth that night. But that was the beginning, the first crack in the story I'd been told about my parents, about who they were, what they were capable of, and what they were hiding. That night, the house was too quiet. No TV, no usual clinking of plates from the kitchen, no light chatter between my parents like there always had been. Just silence. I sat on the couch with a cold bag of frozen peas pressed to my face, my eye throbbing with every heartbeat. Mom brought me water. Dad paced the hallway like a soldier after a battle. But neither of them explained. Not why they left, not what they did when they were gone, not how they knew where to find him. Just that one line again from my dad, whispered like a warning. "It's done." The next morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes, like nothing happened. My black eye was darker now, swollen. But when I came into the kitchen, Mom didn't even flinch. She poured syrup over my plate and said gently, "You need to eat something." I asked her, "Where did you go last night?" She didn't answer, just placed the fork in my hand and said, "Tyler won't come back." I tried pressing her. I asked if Dad hit him, if the police were involved, if this would come back to us. She stopped what she was doing, stared at me with a strange mix of fear and fierceness, and said, Some people only understand one kind of language. Your father spoke it for you. Then she kissed my head and left the room. That answer didn't satisfy me. It scared me, not just because of what they did, but because of how calm they were about it. Like they'd done something like this before. At school, nobody said a word, not even my friends. I thought maybe the bruise would spark some curiosity, some drama. But it didn't. And then I realized why. I overheard one of the football guys whispering in the locker room. You see his eye? Heard he got jumped by some guy named Tyler. But rumor is, the guy disappeared. Then another said, yeah, heard his dad went full Liam Neeson on him. They laughed, but I didn't, because that meant people knew. Maybe not the full story, but enough to be afraid. And that meant my parents weren't just quiet. They were known for being quiet in a certain way. Later that week, I found something that shook me even more. I was looking for batteries in Dad's drawer and found an old beat-up photo tucked behind a stack of receipts. It was a man I didn't recognize, early 30s, tough build, thick mustache. On the back, it just said, Milo. Bindokus use sex in dokus. The date was long before I was born, but scribbled under it in Mom's handwriting were the words, we never speak of this again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark thinking, who was Milo? What happened in 1989? Why did Mom and Dad react to Tyler like it was routine? It didn't feel like justice anymore. It felt like déjà vu. I waited until the weekend, then brought up the photo at breakfast. Mom went still. Dad looked up from his paper slowly. How deep are you digging? He asked. I told them I needed to understand, because I didn't know who they were anymore. Dad pushed his plate aside and looked me in the eye. You want answers? He said. Fine, but when you hear them, you don't get to unhear them. Understand? I nodded. He got up, left the room, and returned with a heavy metal box I'd never seen before. He set it down on the table. Inside, letters, photos, newspaper clippings, and one worn-out document with the words, Case dismissed, self-defense, in bold at the top. He looked at me and said, You asked who Milo was? He was the first man who thought he could hurt someone we loved. And then my mom, eyes glassy, added, And Tyler was the last. Dad slid the worn document across the table. I picked it up with trembling hands. The paper was yellowed at the edges, creased like it had been folded and unfolded 1,000 times. The title at the top read, State of Minnesota vs. James L. Carter, case dismissed. Underneath that, in faded type, charge, aggravated assault, ruling, self-defense. I looked up at him. You were arrested? He nodded slowly. I was 24, just married. Your mom was pregnant with your sister. I blinked. Sister? He leaned back, his eyes clouding over. You never met her. Neither did we. The room went still. Mom got up and walked to the window. She didn't cry, but she clutched the curtain like it was holding her upright. Dad spoke again, his voice lower now, like he was narrating a memory instead of telling a story. Her name was supposed to be Emily. We were young, working night shifts, saving for a house. We rented a one-bedroom apartment near downtown. The walls were thin. And our neighbor, Milo. He didn't like noise. He paused, took a deep breath. One night, your mom was alone. I was on a late shift. She dropped a plate, or maybe it was music. She can't remember. But Milo came over angry, screaming, slamming his fists on the door. I glanced at Mom. She didn't turn around, just said, He didn't wait for me to open it. My stomach dropped. Dad continued. He forced his way in, shoved her. She was 4 months pregnant. She called me from the bathroom, hiding. His eyes flickered with something sharp. I left work, drove home like a man possessed. When I got there, I lost it. He didn't give details, didn't have to. The photo of Milo, the court document, it all told enough. He survived, Dad said, but barely. The police arrested me on the spot. I asked, But it was self-defense? He nodded. The case was dismissed once everything came out, but Emily didn't make it. Mom turned then, her face pale, jaw tight. People think justice always feels like peace, she whispered, but sometimes justice feels like an open wound that never heals. Suddenly, the way they'd reacted to my black eye made sense. The silence, the decision, the 30-minute disappearance. It wasn't new. It was history repeating itself. Only this time, they weren't going to let the law decide. I sat there trying to process it all. All these years, I'd thought of my parents as strict, maybe a little too protective. But now I saw the truth. They weren't just protecting me. They were carrying scars. Scars they never talked about. Scars that bled every time someone like Tyler entered our lives. What happened to Milo after that? I asked. Dad shrugged. Vanished. Never came back to the building. Rumor was he moved south, changed his name. He looked at me. I never looked for him. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to know your mom was safe. The room went quiet again. Then Mom said something that caught me completely off guard. We weren't going to tell you. Ever. But when we saw your face that night, it was like we were back in that apartment, same helplessness, same rage. She walked over and touched the side of my cheek, where the bruise had started to fade. We couldn't go through that again. We wouldn't. I wanted to ask if what they did to Tyler was legal, but I already knew the answer. And deep down, I wasn't sure I cared, because for the first time in my life, I saw the lengths my parents would go to, not just to protect me, but to make sure no one ever silenced us again. But the past wasn't done with us. A week later, something arrived in the mail. No return address, just a small envelope. Inside was a photo of me, walking home from school, and on the back, a single word written in red ink, soon. I must have stared at the photo for 5 full minutes before I said a word. It was a shot of me, clear as day, walking down Birchwood Lane, the shortcut I took home every afternoon, hands in my hoodie pocket, earbuds in, totally unaware. Whoever took it. They were close. Too close. And the back? That single word in red ink. Soon. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I showed it to my parents. Dad's face hardened instantly. Mom's hands trembled as she turned the photo over. We need to go to the police, I said. Dad shook his head. We don't even know who sent it. I raised my voice. They're watching me, Dad. He stepped forward, voice low and cold. And if they wanted to do something, they would have. He held up the picture. This is a message, and it's not for you. It's for me. That was the first time I realized something even more unsettling. This wasn't just about Tyler. It wasn't just some random threat. This was connected to Milo, to 1989, to the life my parents had buried, but someone hadn't forgotten. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside felt like footsteps. Every car that slowed down made my stomach tighten. At 2:13 a.m., I heard the door creak downstairs. I grabbed the baseball bat from my closet and crept out of my room, but it was just Dad, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the photo like it held the answer to everything. He didn't look surprised to see me. Couldn't sleep either? He asked without looking up. No, I said. You think it's Milo? He exhaled hard. I don't know, but someone out there remembers, and they're not done. I asked him if he ever tried finding Milo after the case was dismissed. He shook his head. I didn't want to. That part of my life. I locked it away, changed jobs, moved towns, changed numbers. Hell, we even changed your middle name when you were born. That one stopped me. What do you mean? He gave a sad smile. Your original middle name was James, after me. But after the case, we didn't want anyone connecting you to me if they ever came looking. It was surreal. I had grown up thinking we were a normal family. Strict, maybe. Quiet, but normal. Now I realized my entire life had been wrapped in a shell of protection. False names, carefully chosen neighborhoods, layered silence. And now that shell was cracking. The next morning, Mom found something else. A second envelope. This one taped to the inside of our mailbox. No postage, no address. Inside, a newspaper clipping. From 1990. A photo of Dad in handcuffs. A blurry courtroom sketch of Mom sitting in the back. And the headline, "Local man cleared of assault in pregnant wife attack case." Right across the top, in the same red ink, "Justice was never served." Mom dropped the paper. Dad said nothing. I picked it up and saw something scribbled in the corner. A date. November 3rd. It was 4 days away. That afternoon, Dad installed new locks, cameras, motion sensors. He even put a crowbar behind the living room couch. We weren't just being careful anymore. We were preparing for something coming. I started staying home from school. It wasn't worth the risk. I watched the street from my bedroom window. Every stranger walking by made my heart race. Every passing van made me flinch. But nothing happened. Not until the night of November 3rd. It was 11:47 p.m. We were all awake. No one even tried to sleep. The doorbell rang once. No knock, just a ring. Then silence. Dad grabbed the bat. I followed behind, hands shaking. He opened the door. No one was there. But lying on the porch was a single item. An old cassette tape, labeled in red ink. "Play Me." The cassette sat on the table between us like a loaded gun. No one spoke. Dad turned it over in his hand. There was no other label, no handwriting, no brand. Just that single phrase in red ink, "Play Me." He looked at me, then at Mom, then nodded. We still had an old cassette player in the basement, something Dad had kept for sentimental reasons. We dusted it off, popped in the tape, and pressed play. At first, just static. Then a voice, faint, raspy, male. 34 years, I counted. The voice was slow, deliberate. I couldn't speak, couldn't eat right. You shattered my face, my jaw, my life. Mom turned pale. Dad didn't blink. But you got away with it. Everyone said you were protecting your wife, and maybe you were, but I never got to tell my side. A pause. You thought I disappeared, that I ran, but I was rebuilding, watching, waiting. My pulse thundered in my ears. You started over, got a nice house, a kid, a new name, but pain like mine doesn't fade. It waits. Suddenly, the static returned, then a faint laugh. Low, coughing, bitter. Then the final words, "This time I don't need a courtroom. I just need closure. See you soon." Click. The tape ended. No one moved. Mom sat down slowly, her hands covering her mouth. Dad finally spoke, voice like stone. "It's him. It's Milo." I asked what we were supposed to do. Call the police? Hire security? Leave? But Dad stood up and said something I never expected. "No more running." That night we didn't sleep. Dad kept the bat close. Mom double-checked every lock. I sat in my room, phone in hand, ready to dial 911 at the first sign of trouble. But the night passed, and nothing happened. The next morning, we filed a police report. We gave them the tape, the photo, the newspaper clipping. They took it seriously, at least as seriously as they could. But they warned us. No return address, no fingerprints, no direct threat of violence. He's careful, very careful. They offered to patrol the area for a few days, but they didn't promise anything. The following week was hell. Every knock, every creak, every stranger, a threat, a possibility, a ghost from the past. But no one came, until the letter arrived. No envelope, just a folded piece of paper wedged in our front door. On the outside, "To the Sun." Inside, handwritten in messy red ink, "You're innocent in this, but now you know the truth. Your father didn't protect your mother. He punished me. And when I needed help, They let me rot. Ask him what really happened that night. Ask him what he said after the cops came. Ask him if he's ever told you everything. My hands trembled, because now the fear wasn't about Milo anymore. It was about my father. That night, I confronted him, sat across from him in the same kitchen where I'd learned to tie my shoes, and I asked, quietly, "Did you tell me everything?" He didn't answer at first. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said, "No." He told me the full story, how Milo didn't just shove Mom. He tried to trap her, slammed the bathroom door, broke the handle. When Dad got home, he didn't just hit him once, he kept hitting. Even after Milo was on the ground, even after Mom screamed for him to stop. He wasn't just defending, he was unleashing. Years of rage, fear, insecurity, all of it poured into Milo's body. He thought he killed him, and in those first moments, he was ready to run. But the cops came, and Milo survived. Barely. The self-defense claim stuck, thanks to Mom's testimony and a good lawyer. But Dad knew, deep down, he had gone too far. That was the guilt he carried, the thing buried under all the silence. The reason why, when I was hurt, he didn't hesitate to go down that same dark road. Not to protect, but to punish. I didn't know how to feel, angry, afraid, or just broken, because I had spent my whole life looking up to him. And now, I didn't know if I was looking at a hero, or a man still haunted by the worst version of himself. Weeks passed, no more letters, no more tapes. Eventually, Milo faded again, into the shadows, maybe satisfied, maybe just waiting. We don't know. But things changed. The air in our house was different now, quieter, heavier. Truth can do that. It doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, it just shows you the cage you were already in.